Good morning, everyone. This is Doug Farrar, editor of Touchdown Wire at USA Today Sports Media Group, along with Art Schofield, our 5-tool guy wearing the Moxon jersey, part of your fictional quarterback collection, I understand.
It is the part of the fictional quarterback collection. I've got Alex Moret, I've got Stephen Willie Beeman, I've got Shane Falco. Apparently, that movie is now 21 years old. The Replacements.
But glory lasts forever.
Glory lasts forever, Doug.
That's the way
I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie. That's one of those, like, that and The Martian are like top two for me, like movies that I will stop and watch if they're on TV.
There are certain movies you got to watch about once a year because they just make you feel good.
Yeah.
Without Limits and Black Dynamite come to mind for me.
Also good choices.
Yeah. All right. So this is Thursday morning, August 12th. And oh my God, we've got a full slate of preseason football. Somehow we made it through and somehow
we made it. We made it. It's always a slog every summer.
Most of us made it. But here we are. Let's see. That's not working. So let's try something else. The motto of our podcast, that's not working. So let's try something else. The motto of a lot of quarterback situations as well.
Also true.
Yes. So let's start with the Thursday games. We got two tonight. I was going to start with the 15 second-year breakout players article that I wrote this week, but it's not loading. Okay, now it's loading. So real quick, 15 second-year breakout players for the 2021 NFL season. I'm going to run down a few things, then we'll get into the preseason stuff. Quarterback, Mr. Tua. Which Tua will we see in 2021? The guy who helped the Dolphins beat the Rams, Cardinals, and Chargers in successive early games with a 5-0 touchdown to interception total, or the guy who had to be benched against the Broncos just after that positive stretch because he couldn't quite figure out what he was seeing, or the guy who threw 3 picks against the Bills, including some wide open shots that were just bad in week 17. You know, as I've said, I think he's a timing and a rhythm guy. He's a point guard. He's not going to light up the sky with deep passes. That was not his game in college. It's not his game now. He said that he was struggling with the offense last year. What do you expect to see from him this year? You got Jalen Waddle. You've got a guy who can just do remarkable things in space. How do you see this going?
I'm cautiously optimistic, bordering on fully optimistic about Tua for this season. I think A, he's fully healthy. B, he has that understanding of the playbook, or at least he says he has that understanding of the playbook that he didn't have last year. And C, reports out of camp are largely positive. Talking to some people that cover the Dolphins, Kyle Krabs, for example, who were sort of, iffy on Tua going in. Kyle had a chance to go down to training camp to watch him, and he seems to be sort of all in on him right now. And that's an opinion that I trust and value. And so I'm expecting a better version of Tua than we saw last year. I'm expecting to see that guy that has a better command of the offense. I love the weapons around him. I love the Jalen Waddle selection. So I'm just about ready to go all in on this.
I don't think he's ever going to be spectacular. I think he's going to be good. And with that defense, that probably works.
Probably. It's going to be tough in that. It's going to be tough in that division and in the AFC in general. I think the AFC is loaded this year, but
when you have a guy who probably isn't ever going to be spectacular, and I don't know how they feel about him, but if you're going into that with your second year, I mean, are you looking? Are you like, well, okay, we have Tua for now. Is Tua the for now guy, or sort of how far up can he go? Can he be a top 10 quarterback? I'm not talking about the mental acuity and getting the NFL stuff, because that takes time. But I just wonder about here's my least favorite draft word, upside.
Yeah, I mean, I still think you give him 3 years. I mean, I still sort of stick to that Bill Walsh rule of thumb. I know it's gotten skewed now with how quarterbacks are playing earlier, and you expect more from them earlier, and offenses are catered to what they do and do well and what they're familiar with. But I still think you give it 3 years. So I'm expecting a step forward this year, and maybe a big leap leap year in year 3. But yeah, I'd still give it 3 years.
Work for Josh Allen. So Antonio Gibson had 33 carries in college for, by the way, 369 yards, 11.2 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. Watched tape with him before the 2020 draft, and I wrote that he was the most explosive player in his draft class. Well, last year, 826 yards, 11 rushing touchdowns on 184 attempts, with by far the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. Loaded boxes everywhere. 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys. He was just ridiculous. Finished 8th in DYAR and 6th in DVOA last year. I think of, I think Antonio Gibson, we're talking about top 10. I think he's going to be a top 10 running back this year. I don't think there's any question about it. Give him the ball, get the hell out of the way.
I think that's right. I do like what Washington has put in place around the quarterback position. I think, he's a big part of that. I know you were a huge fan of him coming out. A lot of people were, with good reason. And, I'm excited to see what that offense looks like. And I'm excited to see, generally speaking, Ryan Fitzpatrick in that system as well.
Yep. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the LSU alum. Now, we've talked about the Kansas City offensive line, 5 new starters, and probably going to run a bunch of gap. So per Sports Info Solutions last year, mostly zone, the Chiefs ran. CEH gained 187 yards and scored a touchdown on just 37 carries running gap. In his final season at LSU, he gained 228 yards and scored 3 touchdowns on 41 carries on gap and pull runs. And as I wrote, CEH could benefit from an impossible math problem. If you stack the box against Mahomes, he'll destroy you. And if you lay off, the Chiefs will go bully ball and you'll be in a different type of trouble. I think that's what Andy Reid is trying to build. I think when Kelechi Osemele was healthy last year, and certainly that week 1 game against the Texans, where the Texans just went too high because they were afraid of Mahomes, and, whammo, here comes the 1966 Packers. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, particularly in the fantasy world, were hoping for a CEH breakout rookie season that didn't quite materialize. But I think, like you walked us through, they're setting this up to be an even better unit on the offensive line. They're going to be doing different stuff up front in the blocking schemes. I think, CEH is a good fit for what they want to do conceptually in the run game. And so I think there's reason to be excited about this.
Maybe the top breakout, second-year breakout receiver for me, especially if Trey Lance gets the gig, and I think he will pretty quickly, is Brandon Ayuk. Came out of Arizona State. The whole injury situation was ridiculous. You had, Garoppolo, such as he is. And Ayuk still ranked 7th among rookie receivers with 93 targets, 60 passes, 60 catches for 748 yards with 5 touchdowns. Ranked 6th with 286 yards after catch. That's obviously a big deal for Kyle Shanahan. Football Outsiders in their almanac projected Ayuk with 59 catches for 753 yards and 4 touchdowns this season. I would take the over on all those.
Yeah, I would too. I think he's going to be a big part of what they do. And I do think that Lance is going to see that gig sooner rather than later. I mean, like we talked about last week, like this idea of building packages for a player and things like that. Just play them. Just play them.
Put your best players on the field. A revolutionary concept.
Right.
So Allen Robinson, most likely Justin Fields at quarterback, sooner than later, is moving more to the slot, which puts a spotlight on Darnell Mooney, who 5'9", 175, legitimate sub 4.4 speed. Last year caught 5 deep balls on, 4 of 23 deep attempts for 158 yards, and he had the 3rd lowest DYAR in the NFL on such throws. But his quarterbacks were Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. We don't really know what Darnell Mooney can be. But I'm interested to see how that works, because for a smaller guy, he has the hops to win contested catch situations.
Yeah. And I also think that a lot of those failed connections were not on him. Like if you study him, if you watch him, he's getting open.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your quarterback's Mitchell Trubisky. Hello.
I mean, Bears fans love to point out how he got open against Jalen Ramsey in that game and did it rather consistently. And so, I think with improved quarterback play, Fields, Dalton, whoever's throwing the ball, it's going to be better than last year. Yeah, he's going to have a breakout year.
One of the weirder things in the 2020 season, Henry Ruggs ran a 427 40-yard dash pre-draft, and his Alabama tape was littered with big plays down the field. Raiders took him 12th overall. You expect they're going to use him as a deep guy. He was more of a decoy. He was targeted 15 times on passes of 20 or more air yards. That ranked him 8th among all rookie receivers, tied with 2 Eagles rookies, John Hightower and Jalen Reagor. And if you look at reports out of Eagles camp, I don't know if Reagor is going to make the team. It's kind of ugly. Ruggs caught 5 of those deep passes for 245 yards and 2 touchdowns, proving his explosive potential. even with limited opportunities. Now, Gruden has said he didn't have an offseason program. He got hurt in the first game, had coronavirus last year, missed some more time. And he explained that Ruggs is a big reason Darren Waller had a big year. So I guess they were inserting Ruggs sort of, as much as they thought they could. And this is the big ass year, which based on his talent and Derek Carr being, in my mind, an underrated deep thrower, I think it could be.
I think so too. I mean, they used Aguilar in a lot of deep stuff like we talked about. They used him to sort of clear stuff out for guys underneath. The Waller situation is interesting because, that's a story that seems to be flying under the radar. The guy's, unhappy right now. And you look at what tight ends are getting paid and you can
good Lord, Mark, who in the NFL isn't unhappy right now?
Seriously, everybody's mad right now. Which is great for August.
Yep, it's great for us. So a guy close to your area of expertise, Michael Onwenu, really interesting guy. 6th round pick from Michigan, which I believe the Patriots have had minor success with.
They've had some success with that.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name. We'll figure it out.
Ted.
Listeners point this out to us. Did the Patriots draft someone else 6th round Michigan 2000 whatever? Anyway, so Bill Belichick values versatility in his players maybe above anything else. Onwenu comes in and you play primarily right guard in college, 112 snaps at left guard, 185 at right guard, 616 at right tackle. Now with Joe Thuney off to, and I know this is going to make you this trigger warning with Joe Thuney off to Kansas City. Sorry.
That's life of the big city.
Life in the big city. You seem better about it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I worked through some things in the winter.
Yeah, well, we all get there how we get there. Onwenu made our secret superstars team in week 3 when he moved from right tackle to left guard because David Andrews was injured and Thuney had to move over to center. And he just buried Malik Collins on this 48-yard run. I mean, he's an ideal fit for that line. And I'm really interested to see, give him one position and let him just, maul people. That he's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's already good. And if the Patriots are going to have any success this year offensively, it's going to start with that group up front. I mean, I know, David Andrews is dinged up, and I know tonight, we might not see the starters a ton for both teams, but if you're watching this Washington New England game on Thursday night, don't watch the ball. Watch it. The Patriots offensive line against that Washington defensive front. Like, I don't want to say it's going to be on par with Super Bowl 53 and the Rams defensive line against the Patriots offensive line, but it might be close.
You're not saying, you're just saying.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
That's right. Javon Kinlaw, IDL, San Francisco 49ers. We'll go through this quickly. I thought, I had him and Derek Brown kind of tied. Kinlaw had some knee issues. They did move him more to 3 and 4I as opposed to the reps at nose tackle he got in college, which were a 6'6", 302-pound guy. Not sure about that. And Kinlaw is still dealing with the recovery process after January knee surgery. D'Amico Ryans, who is their new highly respected defensive coordinator, hearing a lot of good things about him. He says Kinlaw's just owning the techniques, putting it together, and he's got the potential to be, dare I say, a legitimate DeForest Buckner replacement. They were kind of hoping that would happen last year. I think this year, but health is a skill. We don't know, but he's got the potential to be.
I think so. And, he's one of those guys that you go down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl by Tuesday afternoon. It's like, man, this guy's going early. Like, he didn't need to practice like after that first, after the weigh-in, the walk across the stage, which still remains one of the creepier things in all of football, the weigh-in process at the Senior Bowl. And then his first practice, everybody knew. You just knew this guy was going to go somewhere. Yeah, the injury thing is something to think about, but the potential is certainly there, and I think he puts it together this year.
Every time I see that weigh-in, I think of a certain scene in the movie Hair, and I'll just leave it at that because that's where it should stay. Alex Highsmith, edge, Pittsburgh Steelers. We've already seen a bit of Mr. Highsmith's work in the Hall of Fame game. Beat the daylights out of Ty Nashiki, the Cowboys backup left tackle with this awesome spin move, and Garrett Gilbert was waiting for like 15 seconds for something to come open, so Highsmith had a little help. The thing I like about Highsmith, he has edge potential, but he picked Lamar Jackson in, I believe, week 8, and I have it up on the site, the play itself. And he adjusted to a play they had run in the first half, kind of came back with it. And I had written about this play last year when apparently Greg Roman uses two concepts and poor Lamar, he can't figure it out, whatever. You know, I don't know if he's the pass rusher Bud Dupree is. Bud is an athletic freak, not great on technique. I think Highsmith might be able to do more. And in a Steelers defense with, you know, the zone drops and the concepts they like to use, Highsmith to me is a guy to watch.
Yeah, I think so. And you know he's going to get opportunities too because of TJ Watt on the other side.
Yep. And Cameron Hayward and Hayward freak. Stephon Tuitt, who is maybe the most underrated interior defensive lineman in the NFL. So yeah, he's going to see a lot of single.
It's a pick your poison situation for opposing offensive coaches.
Yeah. Speaking of pick your poison on the defensive line. So can a reigning defensive rookie of the year be in for a breakout season? Is that ridiculous, Mark? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Chase Young, 7.5 sacks, 40 total pressures, led all rookie edge defenders. And there were times when he looked, I mean, anytime he played the Eagles, it was like, oh God, close the barn door. And when you get into the NFL from college, and I've talked to coaches about this, usually the techniques are rudimentary. You're really relying on your athleticism. I think Young did that to a degree. At times he got away with it and he would make plays. You're just like, oh my God. I think year two, he comes in, becomes that guy. And now you're talking about top 5 potential at his position.
I think so. I mean, what's interesting being here in the DC area is there are still portions of, Washington football team Twitter that aren't sold on him, which I just don't understand. Anytime I go on DC radio, it's did they make the right decision? It's like, you got to understand what he did last year as a rookie was incredible. And I know people look at like Herbert. That's the eggs.
Who knew that was going to happen?
Not too many people. I mean, not too many people. So
that was my biggest whiff ever.
Yeah. I mean, I think, people look at the bottom line numbers sometimes and get wrapped up in the sacks, but it was more than that. I mean, pressure is productivity, creating opportunities is productivity. And I think you're going to see a lot more of it this year.
Isaiah Simmons, linebacker / everything else, Arizona Cardinals. Yep. And I wrote, whenever I see NFL teams selecting multi-position defensive players early enough in the draft to virtually force a starting role sooner than later, I'm reminded of something Casey Stengel once said on Another Matter. They say it can't be done, but sometimes that don't always work, which if you're Stengel, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Unless your coaches have an absolute plan for such a player, that player will inevitably get lost in translation and transition. And that's what happened. Started 7 games, 89 snaps on the line, 193 in the box, 71 in the slot, 8 at free safety, and 15 at slot corner. They didn't really have a plan for him. I mean, they can say they did, but I don't think they did. No off season. You're throwing a guy in, asking him to play basically 4 positions. Vance Joseph, their DC, is now saying, well, now we're looking at him as kind of, we're getting him more acclimated to being the box guy. Because here's the thing, in the first round this year, they selected Xavier Collins from Tulsa, who's another linebacker, who's a multi-position guy. Steve Keim, Arizona's GM, has been in love with these guys. And I've talked to him about it at several different combines. When Arians was the Cardinals coach, he loved it. Keim loves it. We want guys who can do things all over the field. Thus, Tyrann Mathieu in 2013, Deion Buchanan in 2014. This has been going on for a while. Mathieu, yes. Buchanan, not so much. And they've taken, the guys who can play traditional linebacker and kind of said, get out of here. I think Simmons has breakout potential, but I don't know how that's going to work.
I mean, it is interesting, though, the old cliche that we've talked about, we want to be multiple on defense. Well, you need players that can sort of be multiple to do that. I think that's sort of the direction they're going. I remain extremely high on Simmons. I was high on him coming out.
He's great. He's a great athlete. He's a great football player. But what is he? If he's a multi-position guy, you have to define that at some point. Like Mathieu is a peerless slot defender and a near peerless free safety. In time, Minka Fitzpatrick with the Dolphins was, the 6th position guy. Steelers trade for him, make him a 90% free safety. Now he's a top 3, 90% free safety. You have to define this at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is probably eventually going to be he's going to be the overhand guy. Collins is going to be the inside guy. They're going to let Simmons use his athleticism and just have Collins sort of the between the tackle stack linebacker. I think that's the role he's best suited for. You might see him as sort of the high tower and Simmons as the like Jamie Collins, like how the Patriots use those two guys at times.
One thing we have not talked about with the Chiefs, and it's, Chiefs are a big subject, obviously. The guy they drafted in the second round last year, Willie Gay Jr., linebacker, didn't have a preseason, and he really needed it. Inexperienced guy, athletic freak. And I went back and watched his tape through nefarious means that I will not mention here. And I'm not saying a damn thing.
Nope.
That's my Fifth Amendment rights. Really good full field defender in the way you need that kind of linebacker these days. Kind of a cat on the kitchen floor at times. Steve Spagnuolo has said he's really getting the hang of it this year. Now, if you add a full field linebacker to that defense, Juan Thornhill's coming back. L'Jarius Sneed comes out of nowhere. You got the Honey Badger. Chris Jones has lost weight and is absolutely demolishing Orlando Brown Jr. in a training camp thing that I'm sure everyone saw. It might be time to start talking about the Chiefs defense when we talk about the Chiefs. We'll see.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, that pick was one that did surprise me at the time. But the athletic testing and, like you said, the sideline to sideline ability as a linebacker showed up on film too. And so if you add that component to that defense, like you said, that unit could be pretty good, if not great.
Speaking of the Chiefs and draft picks, might have gotten the biggest steal in last year's draft. L'Jarius Sneed in the fourth round. Rashad Breeland gets suspended for the first 4 games. NFL substance violation. Sneed comes in and just balls out, gets hurt, comes back, and outside slot. And oh, by the way, had 4 sacks, including 2 in the playoffs as a blitzer. This guy's something else. And he's in the perfect system. Absolutely perfect system for his tools. Lockdown press guy, can read stuff. I don't know how he lasted that long, but the Chiefs have something there, and he's just going to get better.
Absolutely.
Speaking of a cornerback in the perfect system, let's talk about Jeff Okudah. We can throw everything out from last year. Matt Patricia, put it in the bin. This is and when you say press cornerback, people automatically assume, oh man, well, Okudah was actually better in zone in college than he was in man, slightly.
Yeah.
I will be very interested to see what Aaron Glenn, their new DC, who was the Saints secondary coach for the previous 5 years, will do here, because Dennis Allen's defenses in New Orleans have been, it's not really anything you can put a pin in. Like, it's not all press man. It's not all off zone. They're not playing a crap load of cover 6 like Brandon Staley. It isn't really defined. It's sort of nebulous all over the place, which if you can do that on defense is pretty good. Saints ranked 2nd in defensive DVOA last year. I think Okudah has ridiculous traits. We forgot that because he was playing in a defense that was kind of 2 dumpster fires crashing into each other and falling off a cliff. But I would watch for a pretty severe uptick here.
I think so. I mean, the traits are there. The movement skills are there. The footwork, the hip flexibility and the turns and stuff like that. And so, I think he's going to be in a better situation this year. And a lot of it just stems from how bad that was last year. I mean, don't play man if you can't play man. That's what the Lions are doing all the time.
Our weekly "Don't Play Man If You Can't Play Man" award in the podcast, which will return this season because damn sure someone's going to do it.
Somebody's going to do it.
Lions won it most of the time. Titans did too, which we'll talk about that in a minute because I talked to Kevin Byard about that. And he had some interesting reasons as to why the Titans defense fell apart last year. So a guy who in 3 seasons at Arkansas allowed 80 catches on 142 targets for 1,154 yards, 371 yards after the catch, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and an opponent passer rating of 105.2. And then was drafted in the 2nd round. You wouldn't expect that guy to help define what could be the best defense in the NFL in 2021. But that is the story of safety Cameron Curl. And I didn't watch a lot of his tape in college, so I would not be able to say why he made the leap. I don't think a lot of people had Cameron Curl on their radar. But
No.
he got in that particular system. Landon Collins got hurt, so he was playing some, box, some free. And I'm not going to say that he turned into Earl Thomas shutdown level, whatever, but you don't often see a defensive back play better in the NFL in his rookie season than he did in college. But that's what he did. And
that is what he did.
Great diagnostician, jumps routes like, I always think of Asante Samuel with his route jumping stuff, as you know, kind of that thing. And,
the pick six he had against what I think was Arizona. That was a great example of it.
Yep. That is in the highlight. So, yeah. So those
There
are my breakout guys. Anyone on your radar for year two?
Kyle Duggar from New England. I think he's going to be in a great position now, having had a year under his belt of being asked to do so many things in that defense. T. Higgins from Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati's offense is a work in progress, but I do think he's going to see a lot of opportunities in that system. So
we're going to talk about something in the preview part of this program, which has me downgrading every Bengals offensive weapon. I'll just say that.
And, I know he missed last year because of injury, but Grant Delpit in Cleveland.
Now, I read recently that apparently the return process is not going as well as they hoped. I'll just say that. I don't know what that means, but we'll see. Yeah, it's not the Dak Prescott MRI tweet, which
right.
Yeah.
That was a decision.
That was a decision. Yeah. So who has the funnier Twitter account? Texas football is in a very weird place right now.
Very weird place.
Let's just put it that way. So anyway, on to tonight's games. Thursday, August 12th, Washington at New England. Mac Jones time. Now, Hunter Henry has a shoulder injury after colliding with a teammate in practice, which is you kind of collide with people in the NFL. No one doubts Hunter Henry's talent. Unfortunately, I believe he has to change his name now to oft injured Hunter Henry at this point. Yep. We talked a lot about post free agency. Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. They got all these new guys, and they can do the Chiefs package that's impossible to cover and blah blah blah. Now, if Henry can't stay on the field, which is one of the reasons he was available, I don't know what that looks like, but what have you? Because you're Patriots radar guy. What have you heard about Mac Jones? What would you expect to see tonight? And if you were Josh McDaniels, as Casey said in Sports Night, this is a 3-part question. I'll ask the third part first. If you were Josh McDaniels, how would you best scheme Mac Jones up, especially early, to not look like he's in over his head?
I mean, Mac is kind of ahead of where people expected him to be, but I still don't think that means he's ready to start week one. With respect to the Hunter Henry stuff, the N'Keal Harry sort of breakout that is either happening or a sign for please trade for this guy because we don't want him.
Because it's interesting when we talked about the New England offense after all those acquisitions, I didn't bring Harry up, and I don't think you corrected me. He was just kind of off the radar.
He was off the radar, but he has looked, from what I have seen and what I've been told, he has looked good. Now, could there be some gassing up going on as well to try to increase trade value? Perhaps, but I think in the wake of this Hunter Henry injury, maybe not, because they might end up having to be more 11 personnel by default, even though we expected them to be more 12. As far as scheming up for Mac Jones, I think a lot of play action RPOs, but more vertical stuff downfield. That's what he ran. That's what he was more comfortable with at Alabama. When you watch that Alabama offense, Benjamin Solak now with the Renner, he wrote about it. I wrote about it. They went RPO glance and short stuff at times, but a lot of it was RPO play action and shot plays downfield off of that, obviously to Devonta Smith, to Jalen Waddle, to John Mechie. And so I think that's what New England's going to have to involve to get Mac Jones sort of comfortable. And frankly, that's where Cam Newton's more comfortable too. I mean, there's been a lot said and written about how these are two very different quarterbacks, and in some senses they are, but at the same time, Mac's good and experienced with downfield stuff off of play action. That's probably where Cam's best suited to be anyway. So I think you do it.
Per SIS, Mac Jones had more RPO passing attempts than any other quarterback in the NCAA last year. I would expect that to continue. The people in that coaching staff are not generally stupid. They have a generally pretty good idea of how to take a guy and maximize him for success. I think we've seen that over the last 20 or so years. Yeah. Pittsburgh at Philadelphia. So Dwayne Haskins against Dallas. Here was my thought, and I went back and rewatched it more specifically because I was interested in Matt Canada's motion concepts, which are fascinating, almost too much. Like, guy, tamp it down. You're in the ice cream factory here. Bad snap and whatnot. But when I went back and watched Haskins, I think the thing I thought, and this goes back to his time at Ohio State, where I would have said the same thing, cannot throw on the run at all. It's hideous. And everything looks slow. Footwork was slow. Getting the ball out was slow. The ball actually getting to the receiver. It's like, would you zing it in there? I was looking for a sense of hesitancy or a sense of immediacy with Haskins. This is a guy who's like hanging on by a thread for his NFL career. And I didn't see it. That was disturbing to me.
Yeah, I mean, Haskins is a throwback. He's your battleship pocket passer in an era that is trending away from that player. And if you had reservations about Mac Jones and his lack of athleticism, well, you must be completely out on Dwayne Haskins. Like,
I was where he's going to be. I am now. I mean, I wrote him up. This is not the guy.
As an opposing defensive coordinator, you know exactly where he is going to be on every single play. You have no fear of him moving the spot. You have no reason to spy him or do anything different. You pin your ears back, get after 7 yards deep. He's not going to beat you from outside of that spot. So, yeah, I mean, I still want to think that Haskins can turn it around, but it doesn't look like he's going to right now. And so, that's certainly a concern.
And if you're an opposing defensive coordinator and he does leave the pocket, then it's party time. You're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What a lovely gift. Yeah. Haskins, 14 dropbacks, 1 deep attempt, no deep completions. Random note. One thing I found interesting last season, the Steelers had just 60 pass attempts with 4 receivers last season, but had 6 touchdowns and no interceptions. I'm assuming that was mostly red zone. Probably. So Matt Canada's motion offense, which you've all talked about. I mean, I have written more about pre-snap motion the last year than probably anybody who does what we do. I've been yelling from the rooftops that this is the ultimate cheat code. And even I was like, whoa, this is a lot of motion.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, because there's motion to inform, there's motion to disrupt. And I feel like adding a third category after watching the Hall of Fame game, motion just for the hell of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's Matt Canada.
I'm not quite sure where the Steelers are right now.
I mean, that's Matt Canada. I mean, there's not a problem that motion can't solve in his mind.
Yeah. Roethlisberger last season with motion, 128 of 206 for 1,119 yards, 454 air yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 8 out of 6.0. So it's not like he was getting deep shots off motion. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the equation, Jalen Hurts. I've written that I think Jalen Hurts is decent enough. I wanted to ask you because you have concerns. I know you do. We've discussed this before. Where are you with Jalen Hurts? And what do they need to do to make it like workable?
They need to speed his mind up, or he needs to speed his mind up. I mean, I hate to still at a quarterback to one play, but his first start against New Orleans, he had Mills to the right, go flat to the left, and every route was open, and it still took him 3.5 seconds to make his decision. The post was open, he didn't throw it. The flat was open because Dallas Goedert shoved the slot defender to the turf and it wasn't called. And he stared at it and didn't throw it. I mean, that's the stuff he's going to speed up. People ask me all the time, like, what do you need to see? Completion percentage, touchdowns? No, I just need him to see him make faster decisions. Like, if he does that, he's going to be okay. I'm cautiously optimistic Sirianni's offense is going to give him those opportunities, but I need to see him actually then fulfill his end of the bargain with it.
What is a Nick Sirianni offense?
I mean, it's what you probably expect from a younger offensive-minded head coach. You're going to see a lot of mesh. You're going to see a lot of shallow cross. You're going to see a lot of sort of air raid and West Coast concepts. You're going to see some designed throws. You're going to see some half-field concepts, zone beaters one side, man beaters to the other. Watch Joe Brady. You're going to see overlap with their schools of thought. And so it's going to be friendly to Jalen Hurts. And the other thing I want to see,
I was going to say everything you just described is either first read open or scheming the guys open, which is going to help a quarterback like that a ton because he's not an anticipation guy at all. And you can get away with that more in the NFL now, but that's just, that's kind of where he is.
I want to see if that offense looks like Lincoln Riley's, because I do think that a lot of smart coaches go to a quarterback and say, what did you like out of your college playbook? And we're going to run that. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Like, people ask me, like, what are you going to watch for in this Eagles game tonight? I'm going to see what the concepts look like. I don't care about the results. I want to see the process.
You want to see Boomer Schooner, like, running across the field. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. I want to see that.
Yep. Friday the 13th. Uh-oh.
Yeah, seriously. That's what we need right now. It's Friday the 13th.
That's on top of everything else.
Yeah,
Tennessee and Atlanta, it's the Arthur Smith Bowl. Arthur Smith, Hayden Hurst, Kyle Pitts. This will be fun. Now, the Falcons last year had Arthur Smith as Mr. 2 and 3 tight end. That's why we're bringing this up. Falcons had just 108 2 tight end snaps last season, but 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Historically, Matt Ryan has not been particularly effective with either play action or pre-snap motion. I'm interested why. And watching Matt Ryan over the years, I have a theory, but I'm interested in your opinion of why Matt Ryan maybe isn't that great with play action when usually most quarterbacks are.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, rough theory is that Ryan is so good just from the pocket on traditional drops that he's one of those rare guys where all that other stuff where he has to take his eye off the defense for a second kind of disrupts his mental process and timing. Like, part of the success with play action, but the riskiness, and why I like to see how quarterbacks in college do when they have to take their eyes off the defense and, carry out that fake and stuff. It cuts down your decision-making window, your time to sort of read the defense. The pitcher could change if you've got your back turned to the defense, even for a split second. Ryan might be one of those guys where that sort of, throws off his timing and his reads.
I've talked to people who know. Yeah, I've talked to people who know a lot more about the Steelers than I do. Like, why does Roethlisberger hate play action? It's like, because he's an orchestrator. He wants to see it, and then it's his. I think that's true with Ryan. I think kind of a sub reason some guys like Jared Goff for the last 2 years has just fallen off a cliff with play action. I think when he turns his back and then he turns around, if it's not what he wanted to see, head explode graphic right there, and we move on. So it's not, now you get Kyle Pitts. Hello. This may take a while. So I'll be, not necessarily in the preseason. I just wanted to bring that up. Could be an interesting transition. I talked with Kevin Byard on the podcast last week, and the Titans defense after Dean Pease retired, it was really ugly, especially in man. I think only the Lions will have more touchdown passes. The way he explained it, Dean Pease retired, COVID happened. Shane Bowen, who was one of the 2 linebackers coaches, was calling the plays, but he wasn't the DC, which he is now. So he was kind of coaching linebackers with Jim Haslett, I believe, and then also having a 30,000-foot view, which you really can't do both. I mean, so there wasn't an alpha in the room. There weren't guys getting on board with the plan because nobody knew what the hell the plan was. And he also talked about tying pass rush to coverage, which, pass rush didn't happen, so the coverage didn't happen, which is why the Titans got Bud Dupree and Danico Autry. Now, Bud is still getting his injury recovery together. Danico Autry, I asked Byard about Autry, and he just chuckled like, oh, yeah. And I have been screaming about Danico Autry's underratedness for a while. So could see an uptick in Tennessee's defense overall. I want to see Kyle Pitts on an NFL field, not catching balls from Kyle Trask. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's reason enough to tune in.
Yes, indeed. Buffalo at Detroit. The focus to me is on Buffalo's 2 rookie pass rushers, Greg Rousseau in the first round, Carlos Basham in the second. Now, Rousseau is the movable guy, had a lot of pressures at head over center or one shade. Basham is more of an edge guy. He's a nasty finisher. Brandon Beane said that Rousseau is more of a developmental guy, technique-wise. He said that not only is Basham ready to go, but Basham could have come out last year. So I think they're really pointing at, everyone talks about Rousseau because it's the first round pick. I think Basham is the guy you want to watch the preseason because The Bills had 43 sacks and 302 total pressures last year, which is not, it's above league average, but nobody had more than 5 sacks last season, and there wasn't a defined edge presence. I don't hear a lot about Basham. I think that may change sooner than later.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he's the more experienced and technically sound guy. I think Rousseau will get there. I mean, the athleticism is something he can probably rely on early, but the technique isn't. That's the I think missing piece. There are two things that Buffalo is probably worried about generally. Tight end, although they use a lot of 10 personnel, so they can sort of scheme around that.
Only the Cardinals had it's a break in. Only the Cardinals had more 10 personnel than the Bills, and it was like the Patriots with their 8 2 tight end snaps. And no, I'm not exaggerating. It was 8. The Patriots obviously went out to reshift that paradigm to a more comfortable place. I don't think the Bills care.
No, they don't. I mean, if God forbid injuries happen, that might sort of bite them. But right now, they don't care.
Yeah.
And then pass rush is the other question, and they spent their first 2 picks on it. So
I might add second corner to that, but behind. Well, they're setting the slot. Obviously, Davies. That whole Levi Wallace thing. We'll see. And speaking of, we'll see. Jared Goff.
Yeah,
we'll see. I read a piece by Sam Farmer in the LA Times, in which both Anthony Lynn, who's now their OC, and Jared Goff were like, bring on the low expectations. Put that on a t-shirt.
Seriously.
Let's see. Dallas at Arizona.
It's time to worry about Dak, isn't it?
It's not a setback, and it's not a reason to worry.
It's a reason to worry. I'm sorry.
Planning on getting another MRI, and it's not a setback. It's not a reason to worry, but Axl Rose wants control of Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. This is not a good situation. There's no way you can spin it. Anytime you're getting. And Dak was going to be the reason to buy in on Dallas this year because the defense is a work in progress. It might be a little bit better.
It'll be
Dak
better
and those receivers. But if Dak's dinged, I'm out.
They have nothing behind him. Garrett Gilbert, Ben DiNucci, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
In that Hall of Fame game? Wow.
And
DiNucci was, I don't even know.
What did you think a team like Dallas that learned how important backup quarterback is when Romo went down and they had Dak to step in would see the Dak injury last year and realize backup quarterback is important?
Would a team that would have saved $10 million a year signing their quarterback to a long-term deal a year before they did learn from their mistakes? No.
I guess not.
I guess not. On the good side, Micah Parsons, he's a very fast guy. He is freaking fast. I'm interested to see how they use him as a pass rusher, not only because I know Dan from his time in Seattle. He will multiple front your ass to death. He loves to do that. So very creative guy with fronts. And they might have Parsons off ball doing some kind of Isaiah Simmons style blitzing stuff. He's something else. So, Cliff Kingsbury has said that his offense will be pretty vanilla in the preseason, which it'll be regular season form.
Yeah, it'll be last year's offense. Good to see.
Yep. I said this last week. We're veering around the turn of the Chip Kelly thing.
Yeah.
I'm not there. We're not there yet, but
we're not there yet, but we might be by Halloween.
Yeah. Or sooner. Miami at Chicago. We talked about Tua. Let's talk about Justin Fields. So you're Matt dual slant flat Nagy, and now you have Justin Fields. I'll ask you the same question I asked about Mac Jones and Josh McDaniels. If you're Matt Nagy and you can get your head out of your own, 3-page playbook, let's say Mark Schofield is the new OC and he has power over the offense. How does Mark Schofield design an offense for Justin Fields? Because I really don't want to talk about Andy Dalton. I just don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I would in part say the same that I said with Mac Jones. You go to, Ryan Day and say, or you just grab the Ohio State playbook, which is outside my arm's reach right now, and install it. But I think it would look a lot like Bruce Arians' system. I think you're going to see some 3-by-1 sets, some option concepts, some flood concepts and things like that to one side with a backside ISO, post, vertical, whatever, and let him make a decision. If he likes that 1-on-1 matchup, you might see, Mooney over there with that backside ISO with his 4.3 speed, go post, whatever, just read that on leverage. And then you've got Allen Robinson running option routes in the slot. You've got some RPO stuff with Allen Robinson, which they tried to do last year. And even though the numbers when they ran RPO stuff with Trubisky with Allen Robinson in the slot were pretty good, Trubisky was still late on those throws. Like you would see him double clutch. And when you're double clutching on an RPO slant, like the ball's got to get out. So much of their offense is predicated on yardage after the catch, time and rhythm, anticipation, placement. Trubisky wasn't doing that. Fields can. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing 3x1 stuff. Moody usually on the backside ISO to get him some favorable matchups and some shot play opportunities. Then Robinson on option routes. And again, Justin Fields is very familiar with option routes. So much of Ohio State's offense was designed around them. That's what I'm doing. I don't think it's a necessarily tough offense to install. And what's scary is we're seeing quotes from Justin Fields saying, this offense is very similar to what I was running at Ohio State. Maybe Matt Nagy is doing that already. Maybe. Imagine that, Doug.
Yeah, remember, kids, Justin Fields is not indecisive at Ohio State. He was waiting for the routes to open.
Yeah.
Just a thing.
Denver
at Minnesota. Drew and Tedley are battling it out. Interesting. It's interesting to me because Locke, he had the 1-2 interception game. But in the last month, he was pretty, it's like, okay, maybe. And now he's, back in the mulch. I kind of wonder. And George Patton, their first year GM, had a really interesting quote in Peter King's Monday morning column about how did he put it? Quarterbacks are easier to.
Franchise quarterbacks are easier to find on the open market than cornerbacks.
And we all went.
Trevor Sikkema, I was talking to Trevor about that before we did a show the other day. And he was like, you only say that if you have a handshake and wink and nod agreement with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that's the only way you could say that. So yeah.
Kellen Mond of the Vikings is apparently off the COVID list. Although in that, idiocracy, who knows when he'll go back on. Your thoughts on Kellen Mond? Because we'll probably see a lot of him in the preseason.
Anytime Nick Saban has to dig deep into the playbook to do something against a quarterback, that's a good thing. Okay. And you watch, even though, Mond and A&M lost that Alabama game last year, they had, a play that ended up in an interception where they ran something out of the deep parts of their playbook. This is something that Brett Coleman told me that Coach Kyle Kogan had told him. Coach Kogan is like brilliant in Nick Sabanese. He was like, I haven't seen that defensive call from Saban in like 6 years. So Mond certainly has experience. The problem is extremely high variance. Like, just watch his first drive against Florida this past year. He throws what should have been a pick six on a soft off coverage, cover four look. He throws the out route where he's elated. It should have been a pick six, and it's just basic drop cover four. Like, you got to read that, dude. And then the next play on third down, throws a perfect timing and rhythm throw with a blitzer at his face to move the six on third down. Taylor, two quarterbacks. I think there's something there.
Yeah, coming into the NFL, probably not good to be a guy who struggles against country quarters.
No, probably not. And you might see a lot of that in the preseason because defensive coordinators going to be like, yeah, here's just base cover four. Like, we just want to see how guys play. Like, yeah.
And you want to see who are their best cover four guys because cover four has doubled in use in the last 3 years.
And it's got man principles too. So it gets a little bit of both worlds.
Exactly. Cody Alexander, our friend at Match Quarter, did a brilliant 2-part piece on Vic Fangio stuff. I highly recommend.
It's so really fantastic.
As usual with Cody's stuff, it's off the hook. He's just awesome. Yeah. What's up, Cody? Okay, Cleveland at Jacksonville. Apparently, Urban Meyer said a couple of interesting things this week. Apparently today he said that the competition between Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence is open. I'm just going to say this. Right now, Gardner Minshew would be the Colts' best quarterback if Carson Wentz was healthy. So if I were Chris Ballard and I had Urban Meyer in WTF mode, I'd get on the phone. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Apparently also in the offensive coordinator battle for the Jaguars, Darrell Bevel will be in the booth and Brian Schottenheimer will be on the field. And I won't really have a joke there. How would you scheme Trevor Lawrence up? because I really don't want to talk about either Darrell Bevel or Brian Schottenheimer. I've got enough PTSD up here in the Pacific Northwest already.
A lot of vertical stuff. Lot of verts out of 2x2 and 3x1. Let him attack leverage. He's very good at leverage throws. That Clemson offense, which in all of this discussion about whether Trey Lance will be NFL pro ready, whether Justin Fields will be NFL pro ready, watch Trevor Lawrence, read that Clemson playbook. Man, I mean, they were running, like, if you want to say they were running college concepts, they were running some high school stuff. Like it was really ISO designed reads, one read plays and things like that. But Lawrence is obviously equipped to handle more than that. You could find examples of him working Yankee, working Mills, working more NFL progression reads and throws. But I think you want to be vertical heavy with him. He's so adept at attack and leverage. Reminds me, and I had the Justin Herbert comparison for him. It was because of that leverage ability, that athleticism, that ability to throw on the move. He had a throw out of camp this week where he's rolling right. It was a throwback look, post to the working away from him, basically. And he threw an absolute rope, probably 45 yards on a rope across his body. Like the athleticism, the arm talent, like you cater to that with him. So that's what I do.
There are some quarterbacks, Sam Bradford comes to mind. This is going to sound weird, but I think you know what I mean. There are some quarterbacks who are just artistic. They're pretty. Like someone asked Vince Scully about Sandy Koufax once, and he said, "Oh, a genius, an artist." Certain quarterbacks just have that look about them, and I think Lawrence does. Sam Bradford, before he got hurt, please go back and watch old Sam Bradford tape and just, but he had that same kind of thing. Cleveland. So this is from Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com. Yeah. Grant Delpit has only appeared in 9 team reps in camp because of his recovery from a ruptured Achilles and the subsequent hamstring injury that has sidelined him for about the past week. Yikes. Really good that they went out and got John Johnson, because as we've said last year, they had 4 box guys playing deep, and that's never good. So that's Delpit. You'd love to see him. Great player, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah. That's concerning. Yeah.
It sucks. You wouldn't, I mean, he missed his entire rookie season, and I'd love to see him back on the field because they got JOK, they got Johnson, they got a bunch of guys who can play all over the place. We'll see how that goes. New Orleans at Baltimore. So I got the transcript from Sean Payton, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill all spoke yesterday after practice. Winston and Hill were each asked where they are in their processes. And Hill was talking about how he's putting it together. Very remedial stuff, like connecting with your teammates as a quarterback. And I'm reading Winston's transcripts, and you got macro on like coverage deciding deep balls. What? Mechanical stuff, like really, really specific, precise things. He sounds like a different guy. And he had a year in the box, basically, last season in Sean Payton quarterback school. This is one of the more interesting sort of, everyone, Stafford in LA. But if Jameis can retain the physical gifts and cut the YOLO, like way past YOLO, like Cutler, I compared him to Jay Cutler coming out of college. If he can get past that, we have an interest. I mean, Michael Thomas, and we don't know, but if he could at least provide a bridge in New Orleans, which I don't think Taysom Hill is just capable of doing, NFC South becomes pretty interesting.
It does become interesting. I mean, you're reading reports that, he still has a bit of that YOLO stuff. Like he threw an interception in practice where he's like trying to throw across his body late over the middle. But I think some of the things that he said and some of the other stuff you've seen from him, it's clear that he has a great mind, Winston, for this game, like talking about coverage, talking about mechanics. There was that clip earlier this summer where he was talking to a young quarterback about reads against different coverages and why are you going to put your eyes here and there, pre-snap, post-snap, and things like that. Almost makes you think like he's going to be a great, he's the next Byron Leftwich, going to become offensive coordinator and eventually perhaps a head coach like Leftwich will. But you try to put emotion aside when you do what we do. I'll say it. I'm rooting for Winston. Like I really want to see him be successful because I think he was sort of put into a bad situation with a Tampa Bay system where he had to play right away and it never really helped his development. And then with Arians, who it seemed like never really bought into him. And I even thought that Arians might be the great best coach for him, and it never quite materialized. And then,
well, it was vert. And when you have a young quarterback who has way too much faith in his arm, the last thing you want to do is give him just a crap load of vert and say, go get it.
So, I mean, I'll say it. I'm rooting for Winston. I hope that he wins this job. And if he does, that offense might still have some questions, but that defense could be really good. So, yeah, if Winston takes a step forward and is better than we've seen, then I do think that NFC South becomes a bit more interesting. Because right now it looks like it's Tampa Bay and
it's Tampa Bay and the Pips.
Yeah.
Today on Soul Train, Tampa Bay and the Pips. Yep. So speaking of quarterbacks and preseason mistakes, this is Zach Wilson yesterday.
No, yeah, for sure. And, you know, taking care of the ball is 100% a quarterback's job. And one of my goals when I came out here and I got drafted was just like, how can I adapt to this NFL game as quickly as I can? And I can't be afraid to make mistakes, especially in practice. You know, this isn't a game. This is where I'm learning what I can get away with and what I can't. And so, you know, there's times where, you know, maybe in a real game, I probably wouldn't throw that, but it's times where I'm like, well, let me try right here and see what I can get away with. And it's, you know, as we get closer to the game, you have to start teaching yourself, you know, in that situation, you know what, CJ got a hand on it, he made the play. And so it's like, okay, well, next time in that situation, that same look, I'm going to check the ball down. And so that's what we practice for, is to be able to play situations out like that.
Let's unpack that, because everyone loves the quote. What does it mean for a young quarterback in the preseason?
Well, it means, okay, I get this route concept against this coverage. I think I could squeeze in the dig against that too high look. I can't get away with it unless I do this or that with my eyes first, or, you know, I can't get away with it. So now I know, like, if I face that same coverage week 6, I can make this throw. It's a critical part to the learning process. And think back to, not to make the Wilson is Mahomes comparison, but
it was the first. I listened to this and it was the first thing I thought.
If you remember Patrick Mahomes, his first training camp as the entrenched starter, all the reports was he's throwing pick after pick after pick in practice, and people were overreacted to it. Preseason is about process, not results. Training camp is about process, not results. Put together a process in your mind as a quarterback that will be repeatable and successful once the games start counting for real and the stats count for real. And so this is where you learn what you can and cannot do, and you set those muscle memory expectations. So then when you see cover 2 man and you're running verts out of 3x1 and you think you could squeeze that bender in between the safeties, and you have to drop it over that trail linebacker, and you can and cannot get away with it, this is where you learn that. And so I absolutely, I know we all love that quote. I absolutely adore that quote from Zach Wilson. I think it's the right approach. And, you know, to Jets fans that are sort of getting angsty about Zach Wilson, I've seen some say on the timeline that they made the wrong pick. Don't base that decision or conclusion on training camp.
Is it because it's interesting you gave me the preamble to set the tone there? Your concern with Wilson was exactly that: process, not results. That was your whole thing with him.
Yeah.
So,
and now he's actually learning it. Like the Texas State throw that I always come back to, where they're running verts and he's rolling all the way to the right sideline and throws back to his left 45 yards or so across his body. That's the kind of throw that he could get away with on Saturday nights. He's not getting away with it now in training camp. So now he's going to say, okay, that was fantastic. And it was the splash throw that was played when I was drafted by the Jets. I can't do it anymore. So that throws out of the bag, that throws out of the toolkit. I'll run it, or I'll check it down, or throw elsewhere when I see that look again in the NFL. You have to learn it.
I think it was UCF, a couple of throws he made out of boot where he was pressured, and it was like, that's Aaron Rodgers shit right there. Obviously, yes, and of course I'm comparing him to Aaron Rodgers because I'm a moron. Right. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah,
but yeah, we'll see how that goes. And kids, it's Elijah Moore time. Get ready. Buckle up. It's gonna be fun. Holy
he walked
crap.
off the field today.
Oh,
practice.
I don't like that. I do not like
no updates as of yet, but
crap.
People are hoping it was just like dehydration or something. Because yeah, we don't like that.
No, we don't. Okay, Joe Burrow recently about his training camp struggles. It's 90% of the game is half mental. Here we go.
Yeah.
This is a direct quote. It's frustrating right now, more so just not feeling like myself. I know I put the work in to make my knee feel good, make my body ready for the season. This is pretty athletic, by the way. It's now trusting my abilities, trusting my work, trusting everything. When we get closer to game 1 of the regular season, if this is still happening, then the panic button will start off. But right now, there's no panic button going on. I'm like, the rent stays like before. I don't know about this. Because this is mental.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised by it. I think he's been more open with it than other quarterbacks that have gone through this knee injury. Because if you think back to Carson Wentz, you think back to Deshaun Watson, you think back to Garoppolo, you think back to Brady when he went through it.
Yeah.
The comeback, the first 2 or 3 months even of action, you're not comfortable with that knee. Like, it's just, you're worried about exposing it. You're worried about getting hit again. You're worried about getting hurt again. Carson Palmer too. Like, it's going to take some time for him to feel that confidence that he could step into a throw in a collapsing pocket and that knee is going to hold up. Like, so I'm not surprised by this. I'm surprised in a way by his honesty. I appreciate it.
You don't think it's a big deal?
I don't think it's a big deal yet. If it's Thanksgiving, like, I'm literally giving it to like November because of the medical science and the advancements we have made, and that players can come back from this injury so quickly is fascinating. But the mind is a funny muscle. I know this very well. It's going to take some time for him to feel completely confident in that knee. And I'm giving it till like Thanksgiving. If we get to then and he's still like uncertain of it, he still lacks that confidence and the offense is struggling, then I think it's time to sort of hit that panic button. But until then, this is a longer process than just the physical healing. There's a mental healing process for quarterbacks that have gone through this injury that takes some time.
Step 1, keep him away from his OL depth chart.
Well, and not to beg the question here, but Chase, Penny Sewell. Chase.
Sewell. Okay, let's talk about Jamar Chase for a second. Obviously a freakazoid in college.
Yep.
When you look at today's NFL, what is the primary characteristic of successful offenses and successful defenses? Explosive plays, or the ability to stop explosive plays. Well, how are explosive plays created? Mostly through separation.
Yeah.
I would say that Chase is a 10 out of 10 contested catch guy. I would say he's a 9 out of 10 route. He just kill your ass on slants all day. As a separator, to me, he's about a 5.
Yeah. And, rumblings out of camp are that he's struggling to separate too.
So in that case, unless if my offensive line is that bad and my like all world annual generational, as we do these days, my annual generational quarterback is coming off those injuries and my line sucked that much.
You need a guy that can separate if you're going to draft a QB. I mean, a receiver.
Yeah, you do. I'm not discounting Jamar Chase's brilliance or his potential effect on an NFL offense. I'm just, it wasn't like, and we didn't see it really. Well, you did. You were way ahead on the Justin Jefferson train, but the ability to separate made Jefferson an alpha, a different guy, a step above. Maybe Chase can manufacture that. I don't know, but yeah, that's.
Oh, by the way, just obligatory Amon-Ra St. Brown mention, because he's apparently tearing up Lions camp, and I was a fan. Just had to throw that in there.
Oh, I think he's a good player. I think he's a good slot receiver. He's also Jared Goff's best receiver, which means, what it means.
It means what it means.
Speaking of LOL, the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson is the 4th quarterback in the team's first official. NFL, will you step in and put him on the exempt list? For God's sake. Stupid. Watson said this morning, why y'all still filming me? It's the same shit as before. And yeah, we all agree. That's the Texans this year in one tweet. Oh, by the way, the Texans are trying to limit media access to practices before they're allowed to.
My friend John had some fun with that.
I'm suspecting that Jack Buddy Christ Easterby had something to do with that.
Yeah.
On the other side of the ball, Houston at Green Bay, it's finally Jordan Love time. had no preseason last year, didn't get a single snap in the regular season. So with all the Aaron Rodgers drama, it's important to remember that we have no idea what he's going to look like in the NFL. His penultimate college season, great. His final college season, things kind of fell apart around him. I'll give him that to a point, but it's kind of like Carson Wentz. Okay, things fall apart around you. If you're going to be the guy, you have to be the transcendent at some point. I have a lot of concerns with Love. I went back a few months ago and did a piece on his college tape. He's not a natural anticipation thrower, not necessarily a fatal flaw in a league where quarterbacks will more see it and throw it. And offensive coordinators are required to design offenses around that. But there are too many examples of Love missing schemed open shots and wobbling screen passes to get me too excited. We're getting into like sub Jalen Hurts territory here. And to me, here's what happened with the Packers. Rodgers had 2 seasons where we don't know. So they take Love, and then Rodgers blows up because he's, Mr. I will succeed and kill you. I would say that maybe it's not impossible that the Packers are looking at Love in practices and scrimmages and, kind of ginned up ways to see where he is. And maybe they're going, ooh, we don't know.
I mean, maybe.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I mean, I have a bit higher of a set of expectations with Love, mostly because of that offense. I do think that offense is relatively quarterback friendly. And so if there was going to be an environment where Love could be relatively successful early in his career, it would be there. But I wasn't high on Love coming out. I mean, sure, the athleticism and the arm talent is there, but there are a lot of question marks that gave me serious reservations. And so, how I feel about him should be viewed through that prism of I wasn't a fan to begin with. I think this might be a good situation for him, but I'm not sold on him at all.
Kansas City at San Francisco. Here's a guy we were both really sold on, Trey Lance. This has echoes of Russell Wilson in 2012. The vets are all in. Yep. Pay attention to what the veterans say. Oh my God, that the arm. Oh my God, the QB run game. We never did this before. Trent Williams is already saying this guy's all world. Well, you just gave Trent Williams the gross national product of France in a contract, and the schematic similarities. I'm fascinated to see how much Kyle unloads in the preseason, but fullback leak, why throwback? We've talked about this. The concepts are really unusually similar for a college quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, we were saying this before the pick was made, that if there was, and a lot of people said that the best quarterback out of this class was going to be whoever the 49ers drafted because of Shanahan's system anyway, which I get. But close your eyes, watch the coach tube that I've referenced all the time on North Dakota State's offense and thrown to the fullbacks and tight ends. Watch Trey Lance in that, and you will see Kyle Juszczyk. You will see George Kittle. Like, you can just see the offense. Like, it's the best $49.99 I've ever spent in my life, because it opened the door to opened my eyes to it. And also, look,
evidently you've never found any shitty boxing matches for $50.
I'm not a pay-per-view guy, dog. That's what the streams are for. The VPNs and all that stuff. That and, well, other stuff. Yeah.
Sayonara.
Yep.
On the other side of the ball, first look we get at the Chiefs offensive line with 5 new starters from different concepts. Patrick Mahomes told Kevin Clark of The Ringer, great job by Kevin on this, that his offseason focus has been training himself to be calm in the pocket through the duration of the play as opposed to bailing. If he gets under control, I don't know. Best of luck, everybody, because now he's even better. So I wrote a piece on this yesterday based on what Kevin got out of Mahomes, which was great. And in the Super Bowl, which was kind of the nadir of the whole thing, and he had that throw in the end zone on like 4th and 9 when they were already down 31-9,
parallel out of the ground.
And you could see his face after the incompletion, like, okay, I've done the miracle shit to the absolute limit of human potential, and it still doesn't work. This has got to stop, and it's got to start with me. Mahomes has pressured a Super Bowl record 26 times on 56 dropbacks. completing 9 of 26 passes for 78 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a pass rating of 27.4 under pressure. Is that bad? That's bad. When he left the pocket under pressure in that game, Mahomes completed 2 of 10 passes for 10 yards, -5 air yards, his 1 interception, and a passer rating of
0.0.
Yep.
Wow.
If he figures
Thank you,
this
Dean Wormer.
out, thank you, Dean Wormer, Mr. Blutowski. If he figures this out, I don't know. Good luck. Have fun, everybody.
Yeah.
Have fun with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
A few quick hitters, Seattle, Las Vegas. We're starting to get more of an idea with the Shane Waldron offense. Russell's talking about having more plays in the huddle, being able to check off more in concert with his guy, motion, quick looks, things like that. It sounds to me like McVay's offense with a few more spread concepts. And I really can't think of too many more concepts that would be more favorable to Wilson. So,
Right.
and again, you don't know how much of the box you're going to see in the preseason, but you're going to see a bit of it, and that'll be interesting to look at.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if we see a lot more of design stuff to get Wilson outside of the pocket. Like,
Yeah.
That's really what I want to see more than anything else. Because
Or
that's
designed openings at all,
be.
anything but a couple of a bunch of DK Metcalf's ISO routes, which DK can kill you on ISO all day, but God, give him a break.
Right. Yeah.
Chargers at Rams. We're not going to see Stafford in the preseason, as you'd expect. Any thoughts on that game? Anyone you're looking at?
Justin Herbert. I remain impressed by his season last year, how well he handled pressure last year. Like, would it be possible for him to have a year 2 leap after the year he had? Absolutely. So, I mean, I know we all in the media love to talk ourselves into the Chargers each and every year, but yeah, I'm kind of all in.
Did you read my Mahomes article yesterday? Because I happened to mention.
Happy to mention.
Yeah, I did. Because Mahomes regressed under pressure, and quarterbacks are always less efficient under pressure. Well, not really.
Nope.
Russell Wilson at 101.8 passer rating under pressure. Cousins 104.7. Apparently he was immune. Get it? Russell Wilson had a 101.8 passer rating. Kirk Cousins 104.7. Matthew Stafford 96.8. Herbert completed 94 of 157 passes under pressure from the pocket for 1,203 yards, 664 air yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a passer rating of 102.3. And there's one throw he made to his tight end, Donald Parham, in week 17, where Parham motioned from left to right. So it's TE leak to the left side, kind of a wheel concept. And Herbert knew all the way. So he almost left the pocket, but he didn't. And it was pocket movement, not like Tom Brady level. It was pocket movement. You've seen the play. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a year 5 play from a year 1 guy.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
It is scary with what he could be.
Carolina at Indianapolis on Sunday. That's our final preseason game this week. Give me a thumb, because you scout quarterbacks like more than I do. Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger, which is apparently what we have in Indy.
I mean, you want to talk about 2 completely different quarterbacks. Eason, the big arm.
Eason, talk about a statue, and then Ehlinger is kind of a, he can run.
He's a West Coast version of Tim Tebow, like quick game stuff, athletic. Wouldn't surprise me at all if
I really don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I know it's weird, but that's what he is. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Frank Reich has some ideas of some like Taysom Hill-ish packages for Ehlinger anyway. But yeah, 2 completely different quarterbacks. Neither guy I was really excited about coming out. We're hearing that both Quentin Nelson and Carson Wentz are ahead of schedule and might be back for week 1, which I think is good because, as we talked about last week, Indianapolis runs the gauntlet in those first 5 games, 4 playoff teams from last year and the Miami Dolphins, and they play the Titans twice in the first 7 or 8 weeks. And so They need those
Ross,
guys
yeah.
back for week 1.
Ross Tucker on his podcast, which is a must listen, especially when Greg Cosell is on, made the point in his most recent podcast with Greg that the Colts have a history of coming in over optimistic on injuries and having to push guys back.
Yeah.
Which is true. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. But I mean, Easton, Allinger. Okay. I mean, if those are your plans B and C, good luck.
Gardner, Minshew, clap, clap.
Yeah.
Clap, clap. I'm just saying. I am saying, but I'm just saying.
You are saying.
Oh, Quiddy Pay with an ankle injury. So there's that. First round draft pick. I mean, I don't want the Colts to be the 49ers this year, but it's starting to look that way.
It's starting to look that way indeed. Indeed.
Yeah, somebody needs to be nice to Jobu. I don't know what's going on here. It's bad.
Get Joe Boo's rum.
Yep. Very, very bad. Okay. That is week 1 of the preseason. All excited to see it and excited to get the pod going. And Dr. Schofield, we will be back next week to actually talk about, games, players.
To talk about games and players and all that fun stuff.
People have done things and we can, blather on them. Awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Cool, man. All right. Talk to you next week.
Excellent stuff, my friend.